is Tori Peters. I am a teen entrepreneur and author of the book Power of the Moment. So, today's topic is we are talking about there's always people watching. And when I say that, I don't mean the FBI agent on the other side of your webcam. I'm talking about the people around you and people who, actually really matter to you. This is probably going to be a pretty long video. I'm just going to warn you from the things that I've learned from making these videos every single day is that since I have a lot to talk about with this one, this is going to be a little bit of a longer video, and that's perfectly fine. So stick around. You'll want to hear all this information. It's super important, and these are things that are actually going to help you in your life, whether or not you are 13 or whether or not you are 50. So all of this matters, and if you don't know it already, then you should definitely stick around, because you may not know what I'm talking about at the moment, but there will probably be something in here that you may not have realized before. So stick around. People are always watching you. I've got a few stories that have to do with this, but we'll go ahead and we'll just start off with the people who are looking up to you. Okay, there are always people watching you, whether that's little kids or just people who look up to you as teenagers. So for me personally, I know I have quite a few small little kids from at least my scout troop, if not the places that I work, that look up to me and look to me for cues of how to behave, how to act, how to treat other people. And I didn't realize this for a really long time, but at one point I went into a board of review, which is sort of a little interview to see if I was going to pass up to the next rank for my scout stuff. And one of the leaders, the moms, was like, "You came to our scout troop a year ago," and all the little girls were like, "Wow, we want to be just like her, she's so cool," all this stuff. And I didn't realize it at the time, because the little girls in my scout troop have always just sort of had us, and so I kind of knew they were watching us and using us as an example, but I wasn't paying that much attention. But when I was told look, these little girls, they look up to you, they want to be just like you, it made me realize wow, the decisions I make affect these little kids, because they're watching me and they're seeing oh, it's okay to act like this because she's doing it, or oh, it's okay, she made that mistake, so even if I make it, it's fine, right? They're watching and they're seeing the mistakes you make, and they may not learn from them like you did. They may watch you and say, well, she did it, so it's okay, So you have to be really careful when you're doing stuff and when you're how you act, because there are people watching you and they may not take it. They may not learn the way that you did, and they may take your mistakes and think it's okay to make them, sort of a thing. Or they may look at you and go, wow, I want to be just like her, she's doing all this stuff, she's gotten really far, she's become super, super successful. And that's what you want. You want people to look up to you and go, wow, I want to be just like them, I want to do what she is doing, I want to get further and higher and go for my goals like she did. If she could do it, then I can do it too. That's the kind of stuff that you want to happen. And so when you're just being you have to remember that there are other people watching, and there are people who look up to you watching as well, and so you want to set a good example for them. And that's something that I take very seriously, and I've had it said a couple of times, especially the biggest example for me is in Scouts, but I know I work at a summer camp for kids, and I know that those kids are watching us too. They're watching the summer staff, and they're watching and they're learning from us, and they're learning how to share God from us, and they're learning what it means to be loved by God from us, because it's a Christian summer camp. And so when you are working, especially with kids, these kids are watching you, they're paying attention to how you act and how you treat each other, and they are going to learn from you, and they are going to treat other people like you treat other people. So you have to be careful, and you have to pay attention and be a good example for these kids, and so that's super important. Now, there are a ton of people watching. It's not just little kids. There are also people who are above you. So those were the people who are sort of below you and like want to be like you or are watching your example. But then there are also people who are above you who you look up to, and you may not realize it, but they're paying attention too. Like, these are bosses, they're mentors, they're people who are above you, and they're paying attention as well. They're watching you and to see how you follow through with things that you say you'll do. They watch you to see if you actually commit to things and follow up with the things that you've committed to. They watch to see how much effort you put into the stuff that you do. They watch to see everything you're doing. Like, everything you're doing is being watched and possibly judged or criticized in a way, and they're watching to see, like, would they recommend you? Would they want to work with you? Like, these people are always watching, and so you have to be, like, careful what you put online. You have to be careful where you, like, I'm not saying this to scare you. First, like, this is a little bit of a rabbit trail, but, like, I'm not saying this to scare you. You don't have to walk on eggshells your entire life. But they're watching to make sure, like, you're the kind of person you say you are. And so when I'm saying, like, people are watching you, I'm saying this because you want to make sure that everywhere you go, you're putting that forward. Like, you're making sure that your image is in good light. Like, not selfishly, but honestly, it's one of those things where it's like, there are always people watching you. Even if you think that no one's watching you, they probably are. So it could be a boss, it could be, you know, people who look up to you, it could be just a friend or a friend of a friend, like, or someone who's going to be your future boss, or, you know, it just, honestly, there could be any number of people watching you, and it's really important to pay attention to what you're doing, whether it's just being a good example, or whether it's being like a good employee or a good, you know, apprentice. Like, whatever it is, these people are watching you, and it's really important that you realize that they're watching you, so that, like, when you feel like giving up and things get really hard and all you want to do is just stop and, like, take a step back and go, you know what, I can't do that. Then you realize, like, hey, these little kids are watching me and I'm the good example, and so if I don't give up, maybe one day they won't give up. Or my bosses are watching me, and you know what? I know for a fact that when hard times hit them, they didn't give up, and I want to be like them, so I'm not going to give up, you know? And that's something that bosses are looking for. Like, mentors, they want to know, like, that you're committed, and they want to know that, like, you're going to do whatever it is that needs to be done for them. You're just gonna get it done. Like, you're gonna get crap done, you know. And they want to know that you're reliable. And so people are watching. And so when you're flaking, or when you're thinking about flaking, or you're gonna stop, or you're gonna quit, like, there are people watching you. And so, like, use this as encouragement to know, like, hey, this may not be recognized right now, but eventually it will be. And eventually, like, there are people watching me now, and this will definitely help me as I follow through with everything that I'm doing. So remember that. Now, this is really important, this next point. It's online posts. What you post on social media and everywhere else is super, 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 super important. Okay? Anyone can see that, basically. Even if your privacy settings are, like, set really high, anyone can see this stuff, dude. Like, it can be screenshot, it can be, you know, like, it doesn't go away. So it's really, like, even Snapchat. Honestly, Snapchat is like, oh yeah, we deleted it within 24 hours. But when I was, like, 13, I was doing this thing for debate, and it was on electronic surveillance, and it was saying, like, that all the data and stuff that is sent out is collected in databases. So even though it says that your posts are deleted within 24 hours, I can promise you that post has not been completely erased off the internet. Like, that's not, don't go sending weird stuff on there, because, and by weird I mean inappropriate. Like, because that stuff is being collected and it's not actually being deleted. It is on a database somewhere, and you need to be extremely careful what you send on the internet and what you post on the internet, because one, your bosses are probably watching. Like, if you friended your boss on Facebook, or you friended a coworker on Facebook, so if you're like working and you're like, and you're complaining on the internet, and you're like, my job is so awful, my bosses are terrible, blah 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 blah, like, don't do that, okay? That's stupid. With 2 O's. I know that's not a stupid spell, that's the point. Like, no. Don't be that idiot who goes, like, trashing your job and your work and, like, the company, because then that's how you get fired. Because people are always watching. Like, your bosses are watching. The corporate is watching. Like, this is how you get fired, people. How have you not figured that out yet? Like, first thing. And two, like, potential bosses are watching you later on. Like, you may have posted something, like, terrible about your job now, you know, and then you go and you get a job somewhere else, and these people, like, they get access to your Facebook page, and they go, wow, you know, this person seems like a great fit. And then they look at all the stuff you said about, like, previous bosses and, like, previous work stuff and all the gossip that you put on the internet, and they're like, you know what, we don't need this kind of negativity in our workplace, so they don't hire you. You know, like, my boss has access to all my Facebook stuff. Like, he doesn't have access to my passwords or anything, but he can see anything I post, like, publicly, you know, and all the people who I work with in, like, schools and things, they all have access to the stuff that you post. And so if you're posting inappropriate things, or you're posting, like, hate stuff about your about your college or about your workplace, like, if you're posting all this awful stuff about, like, where you work in your life and all this, like, stuff, people are watching, and people are not going to want to be around you after that. Like, if you're posting all your drama on Facebook, like, they're gonna be like, wow, this person is super dramatic, maybe we shouldn't work with them. Like, this sounds like they're really high maintenance, you know? So you want to be super careful on what you post on the internet, even if it's, like, just cussing or whatever across your, like, Facebook page. Like, I know everyone does it, but that's not a good thing. Like, that doesn't mean you should. And that's even from just, like, churches and stuff. Like, if you're gonna be on, like, a worship team or whatever, I know the church that I, like, went to for a while is super particular about, like, who they let on the worship team, because they, like, want to do a good image. They want to show a good image, and so, like, it's really important what you post on the internet, and, like, people are always watching, and, like, all the people I've already talked about, they're still watching you on the internet, and they're judging you, probably, especially if you're, like, posting, like, inappropriate things, or you're posting, you know, how awful your job is, or all your life drama on Facebook. Like, honestly, save that for your diary, because that's not what Facebook is. Like, people treat it that way, but it really shouldn't be. That's just TMI, man, you know? So these people are always watching you, and especially your online posts, so you really, 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 really should be careful. Like, I'm hammering this point in because this can get you fired real quick. Or it can make it so that you don't get hired. Or, you know, it can make it so that, you know, people will stop hanging out with you. Like, social media, you need to be really careful what you post on social media, because it can ruin your life, honestly. And all it takes is just one post, or, you know, one picture sent, or, you know, just whatever it is, something that's negative, and it can ruin it. It can ruin your entire life. So you need to be super, super careful. Alright, so now we move into a sort of lighter topic, and this one is fans. If you are like me, and so I have this YouTube channel, and I have, you know, some Instagram channels, or Instagram accounts and things, you know, and there are people who are, like, your biggest fans, whether that's, you know, your grandma, or your, you know, best friend. Like, your fans are always watching you as well. They're always seeing, like, where you're going, and, like, they're rooting for you. They want you to do well. They want you to go higher and reach those goals and do all these things. So that's why I'm calling them fans. They may not necessarily be, like, fangirls, but, like, they're your fans. And so, like, they're always watching you as well, and they're rooting for you, and they want you to do well. And so they're watching you, and they're ready to help you and pick you up and be ready to be there for you. But on the flip side, there's also haters. And I've sort of talked about this in a previous video, I believe it was just last week, where I talked about how to deal with haters. So I will leave that in the description below. But haters are always watching you as well, and in fact a lot of times they watch you closer than the fans do, because they want to watch you fail, and they want to see you fall, and they want to laugh at you while you fall, you know, and they want to judge you. And the funny thing is that haters don't realize that even though like they're hating on you and they're leaving all these nasty comments and whatever, you know, they're also giving you views and they're also watching you, and so a lot of times they know more about you than your fans do, and it's kind of funny because, you know, they say that they don't like you, but then they go and they spend a lot of time like watching all your stuff and giving you views. And you know what, a view is a view. It doesn't matter whether it's a fan or a hater. And so the encouraging thing about the haters watching you is that, you know what, they're still bumping up your views and they're still watching you, and that's really all that matters, you know. So far, we've talked about how you have people who look up to you watching you. There are people like your bosses and people you want to mentor you looking up to you, or like watching you. There are the people online who are watching you, and really I talked about how important it is to be careful what you post online, because it can come back to bite you in the butt, and you don't want that. There are fans watching you, and there are haters watching you. And so really what I'm trying to show you guys is that, you know, there are always people watching you, and there are always people who are paying attention to you. And so it's really, really important that you go ahead and you take the time to just take a minute and take a step back and go, okay, who's watching me? Maybe I shouldn't give up. Or who's watching me? Maybe I should really just, you know, hit the gym harder. You know, my kids are watching me, so I should really work on doing this the best of my ability, you know. And you may not realize it, but your actions are always important. It's who you are when no one is watching that shows you your true character. Honestly, your true character is shown when you know no one is watching you. So whether that's, you know, like at camp or whatever, when I'm walking down the road, if I see a piece of trash, I pick it up. And I don't care if it's not, you know, the time when we're doing trash pickup. Or I don't care if I'm on the way to breakfast and I'm late. Like, take a second and I pick up the trash, because, you know, one, I don't know if someone's watching me. Maybe someone is watching me, you know, maybe it's a camper, or maybe it's a boss, or maybe it's just a fellow staff member. Like, who knows? Even then, like, I know that, like, I want to keep the camp clean, so I take a second and I'll just pick it up, you know, and I don't even really think about it most of the time. And part of that is because, like, at Scouts we did that all the time. And then part of that is just like, I want to take care of the camp, you know. And so it's really important that when you, like, don't think anyone is watching you, then you show honorable character. Like, you stick to your values. You don't, like, wibble wobble, like the Doctor Who wibbly wobbly timey-wimey. Like, you don't compromise your values. And when no one is watching you, or when you believe no one is watching you, that's probably when people are watching you the closest. And so it's really important, and your true character is shown when you think no one is watching you, you know. And so it's important to just always uphold honorable character and always uphold your values and your morals, because you never know, and a lot of times you won't even, like, people will be watching you and they won't even tell you. There's a few times where, like, people have told me, like, wow, I was, like, watching you and you did amazing, or wow, you were, like, just you looked like you were having so much fun, or you looked like you were exactly where you were supposed to be, and, like, it was perfect. And I didn't know that person was watching me. I wasn't paying attention. I was doing my job. I was, like, in the zone, you know? But it was one of those things where it's like, I could have been just sad and like not happy or just been in a bad mood just to be in a bad mood, you know. But I've had a few situations where like people have come up to me and said this happened at camp this last summer. You know, someone came up to me and was like, you know, when we were all here at camp over, you know, this week, one of the girls looked at you and said, wow, like Tori looks like she's just glowing. She looks like she's so happy. She looks like she's exactly where she's supposed to be, you know. And I didn't realize this person was watching me. I wasn't paying any attention whatsoever. I was doing my job. I was serving people at line for like lunch or whatever, you know. And these people were watching me, and they were seeing like how I interacted with like the campers and seeing how I interacted with the staff and just how happy I was, you know. And it's one of those things where you won't know that people are watching you, but they are, and you need to make sure that, you know, you don't get caught in a situation where people were watching you and you acted in a way that's not attractive or not, you know, good. And so I'm not saying this to scare people. I kind of said this before, but you know, like, I'm not saying this to scare you. You shouldn't walk on eggshells all the time, but you should really work on, like, if you don't have good character, I guess, like, you need to work on making sure that no matter where you are sharing light and you are sharing love, you know, and you are doing what's morally right to you, you know, and you're holding your values, because that's really important, and people are watching, and they'll know and they won't even tell you, like, they'll know if you mess up, and they'll know, like, and people can be forgiving, but then again, like, if they won't, a lot of times they'll judge you and they won't even tell you. Like, they'll say it's a boss and they see your post online and you're trashing your old workplace and you're like, it's awful, blah 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 blah. Like, your new boss or the ones who's thinking about hiring you, they may look at that and go, you know what, we don't want that. And then they'll just tell you, well, you know what, you weren't the right fit for our job. And they won't tell you that it was because you posted some crap on Facebook. Like, they won't. They'll just say, no, you know what, that's okay, we don't really need you in our life, you know, and you won't have any idea. So that's why it's important. That's why it matters. So the important thing to remember is that people are always watching you, and that you really shouldn't forget that, because if you do, it can be, you can sabotage yourself. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope this was valuable to you. I know this has been a rather long video, but I really wanted to make sure I got the point across and made sense. So my voice is like dying, and it's because I'm sick, and I've got this nasty cough. And yeah, so if you're having trouble like understanding me, I'm really sorry. I sort of been having some issues lately, but I'm hoping by the end of the week, like, that it will be everything will be okay, you know. So I'm just giving myself some time to heal and be ready for whatever comes next. Right now, you should definitely subscribe, especially if you liked this video, or this video like made sense to you and gave you some good advice here. If you have any questions about this topic, I would love to talk to people. Anyone about this, you know, you can either follow me on Instagram. I'll put it right here. It says Become the Light is my user, and you can just send me a private message saying like, hey, I don't understand this, or what did you mean by this, you know, or just ask me a question about this specific topic in general. You can send me a message there, or you can comment it down below, and I will definitely reply, because I'm on YouTube every day right now. So on that subject, I am going to be doing a series where I upload every single day for 80 days. So you definitely don't want to miss any of those videos, and you should totally subscribe. Right now, I've got like almost 20 videos up, not quite, for this series so far, so you should definitely go check those out. Those will definitely help you a lot, so go check those out and make sure that you subscribe so you don't miss any of the upcoming like 60 or so videos that will be out soon. So you don't want to miss any of those, and the way to not do that is to subscribe. So, yeah. Until next time, have a great day today, and don't let your lights go out.